everyone. If you did not get a chance to listen to the live show today, then I highly recommend you go find that recording because Tamar is amazing. She is a real estate mogul and she's also done something really, really magnificent in life. So, in addition to being a mom, she's also been a wife for the last 22 years and has a great partnership. And I want to talk actually a little bit about that. So, we've talked real estate. We definitely dove into a lot of that on today's live show. And I want to shift a little bit into this beautiful, like, next phase of life that you're going in. You're about to go on this fun adventure with your partner, going to be nomadic. And what are some of the things that you've done in your relationship that you didn't do in the beginning that you do now that you think are part of why you've had lasting love?
That's interesting. That's a great question. Well, I think what it really boils down to is getting to a point where you are very accepting of how other people are and you really embrace them and learn to love them as they are. So I think that it's just it's a lot of energy to have a life partner, right? Because it's hard enough to deal with yourself and then you've got another person. So you got to kind of figure out your rhythms. Like I know in the morning, my husband knows that I get very focused and I'm doing my thing. So he won't even go in the kitchen at the same time as me sometimes so that, he'll just give me my space. So, and there are certain things where I know that there are certain times where he'll say something and he'll say, I don't really like this. And I can tell, oh, he really doesn't like this. So I take it seriously. So, it's like a communication thing. It's like a deep layer of communication. And it's also, I think that I think there's also a recommitment continually for being in partnership for that long where you really have to just ask yourself again and again, okay, this is love. This is this is the commitment. And then just showing up for that.
That's so good. That's so good. I feel like so many times we can get a very Disneyland sort of idea around what love looks like, meaning some people would believe that love has to look like butterflies all the time.
Mhm.
Love looks like we get along all the time. We walk through life holding hands and constantly smiling at each other.
I thought it was Bridgerton.
Oh, oh, great. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so TV also helps us build these ideas of what, we think that love looks like. And I think it's so important because as I hear you talking about the acceptance part, which is what we all want, right? And we all want to be accepted, knowing that we're not going to be perfect. Like we're just not. Not all of us are going to be perfect. It's just not going to happen. And so when we show up and we're not always our best selves, what could that look like? And how can we maybe honor and make space for our partner to show up better or to just give them the room to just be who they are? And I think those pieces are really important. And the reminder on what the commitment is and that those commitments can be different for each relationship. I don't think there's a cookie cutter. And I think that's the other important thing for people to hear. I watched my sister marry her first love out of college. She had never been with another man, and he was her person. They had a very 1950s kind of relationship. He really led the household and she was fine with that. She followed and took care of the kids and took care of the house, and that really worked for them. And I think that's why it's something I can look at and go, I don't know that that would have worked for me, but it worked for them. And it's so important for each relationship and each couple to find their groove and to find what their definition of success looks like for them because it is so different amongst all of us of what we like and what we don't like and what we can tolerate and what we can't tolerate and that piece is just really important. And what is something that since you guys are about to be nomadic, have you now let me ask you this, have you all ever been nomadic before?
We haven't, and I still wonder, like, it's gonna be interesting. I wonder how if we're gonna be, like, a month home and a month away. So we kind of will be, like, pseudo nomadic. We've never been full nomadic, and I don't know that I don't work a little bit homebodies, so we actually like being home. I was thinking about the other day, I was riding my electric bike to a coffee shop, and I was thinking, would I wanna be anywhere else in the world right now? And I was kinda like, I don't know, like, would I wanna be riding through the Italian Alps or whatever it is, and I was like, "Not really." So, but I do think that we'll probably head out quite a bit, is my guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of it, right? Is the fact that you get to explore. That you
Mhm.
have the freedom to be able to say, "Hey, if I'm not gonna be home for a month and I am planning on going to the French Alps, for a month," like, how do you dive into that for a month and enjoy it and see what it's like, or figure out if maybe being home is more of the jam.
Right.
I can say that over I was in an 18-year partnership, and one of the things that we did pretty consistently is that we would go to Hawaii for a month every year. And that was just what it was. It was our groove to go and stay for at least a month, and we loved it. And part of it was like, this is what it would feel like if we wanted to live this life at some point. And then also, I travel a lot. So getting on a plane from Hawaii to come back to the mainland did not sound fun for me for as much as I travel. So being there for a whole month and being able to be in a routine and savoring what was there was more of a, I could do this in the future when I'm not at a point in my life where I am still on the road and still traveling and enjoying that flexibility of it. So I think that
Mhm.
this is where we figure out those flavors of life that feel really good.
It's pretty
Feel
interesting
great.
too that in our minds, you think that, "Oh, I just wanna be able to just travel all the time and be nomadic." And then once you can actually do it, you have to ask yourself, "Well, but do I want to?" Or you're in Hawaii and you're thinking, "Oh gosh, it's such a pain to get back everywhere all the time." And so you start thinking about things differently. For me, I mean, if I were to go somewhere and have another adventure and let's say go to one of the places on my list is Panama. I just think it's interesting. I think, a lot of people go there and it's a place where you can live and enjoy and be by the water and and then I think I would miss all the events here in Austin. I would miss whatever I had going on. It's almost like you have to build a whole other community or you can get a little lonely unless you like just reading books and walking on the beach and eating food for 6 months seems like a long time.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this again is where you really end up finding what is your ebb and flow, what feels really good. Is it fun to try new restaurants until it's not fun to try new restaurants anymore? And you're like, no, I really enjoy my own cooking or my own food. And then maybe that, moves on into having something like an Airbnb where you can cook for yourselves, and then you settle into learning what that feels like. And these are all a part of just the fun curiosities and explorations that I think we get to have as we're in the stage of life where we can do that. I know one of the other ones that worked really well for me was
Oh,
also being able to.
I absolutely love, though, right now, the way the world is where you can travel so easily and Airbnbs are just everywhere and you can stay and people have learned that you don't necessarily need to have millions of dollars to travel. You can travel with less and it's actually talk about freedom, right? There's so many young people that are living nomadically. They're already doing the things that I worked so hard to have to kind of create that opening, and they've been doing it early on before they had kids.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a gift. It's definitely a gift, and I will say this, one thing that COVID taught me, because I traveled less during COVID, was what it was like to be home, because I actually had the opposite experience because I was on the road so much. I wasn't home enough to really get into a great routine or to be able to, experience that, And I think that being able to be home and to get into that routine, those were all a gift. Those were all definitely a gift. So, Tamar, talk to me about what's something you wish you had known before you got into partnership. What's something that you know now that's been a really like a gift for you after being in partnership for this long, and now you can go, there's some things that if I'd known it sooner, we could have had a richer relationship faster, or we could have been more vulnerable with each other sooner. Like
Mhm.
what are some of those
Yeah.
things?
Well, there's a couple things. One is that I wish I would have been able to be more vulnerable. I was very closed off because I was
Mm,
afraid. And for a very long time, I still think sometimes I have some blocks around that. Love is a very vulnerable emotion. And even with someone that you really care for, it can feel really scary. And especially if maybe in childhood you weren't feeling that safe. So that's one of the things. I wish I had I had better tools to self-regulate my reactive voice that just oftentimes my husband will still say to me today, not as much anymore. He'll look at me and say, that was your out loud voice. So sometimes I will say things that are maybe a little insulting or hurtful just because that's just my reaction to it and not realizing, oh, there's a person at the other side of the table that thinks differently than me, that will react differently than me. So
mm,
that is a dance that I wish I would have been better at and knowing how to. And that comes from, as you notice, both of those tools are really about myself and about how I can be so that I can show up in the relationship better, not something that he needs to change. Because I never want to look
yeah.
at a partner and say it's them. I always want to look at my part and see how I can change.
Yes, I think that's so important because so oftentimes we're looking to poke holes at our partner, and it's so easy to do when we want to be critical, but we forget that like looking inside is actually the first place we should look. The old adage of like every time we point a finger, there's always one pointing back at us, and the person that usually is responsible for what's going on is the person in the mirror. And I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. So I've been navigating, I came out of an 18-year relationship and I've been navigating dating. And although, like you, I'm also a friendly, outgoing person and can talk to just about anybody, I have found that connecting with someone is much different than just having a conversation with someone.
Mhm.
And that it's the beauty of those long-lasting relationships can be in the fact that you can take time to connect and that you get more time with each other to really know each other and to understand each other's nuances. And this the story you told earlier about how you're like, "Well, he gives me space in the kitchen in the morning." Like those little nuances, you're not necessarily gonna be able to share with a stranger, but they're the beautiful things about being in those lasting relationships that give you the time to create that space and the consideration for the other person. And one of the things I found that makes it really easy for me to sort while I'm going through the process is how easy is it for me and this person to actually connect and to talk about things that are
Mm.
under the surface, versus being like, how's the weather, how's your work, how's it great, those are all great like warm up questions, but really it's, hey, what's feeding your soul, and what's been on your heart. Like I want to be able to have those conversations. And so when I can meet someone who can meet me at that level of connection, then I go, yes, now we're talking, now we're getting somewhere. Whereas the others are like, okay, I see this is going to be a very slow day. What would you say? You're also a mother, and what would you say for the parents out there? What's been your tip, your best parental advice that's held you through all these years of raising kids?
I always say that the most important thing in parenting is making sure that your kids know that you love them. Because I think that as people, we're resilient, but knowing that we're enough or knowing that we're loved is the thing that really keeps people down. And so I think that I had mentioned in our last interview that making sure that the kids have confidence in themselves is so important. And part of that is kind of feeling like you have a wind behind your back, knowing that, someone's going to be there for you so you don't fall. Or if you fall, they'll be there to pick you up. And so I think that that is really, to me, at the end of the day, because you can yell at your kids, you can say bad things, you can get mad and do whatever it is. But if they know that you love them, if they know the commitment's there, then they generally end up being pretty great, is what I've seen for the most part. Obviously there's exceptions, but that would be my best shot. That worked for me.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. I have to say that I'm a child of a mother who instilled a lot of confidence in me. And that is certainly one thing that I look back on my life and say, wow, I'm so grateful that my mom made sure I was a confident child, that was one of the things that she instilled in me. And that confidence, it really can carry you a lot, especially
Mhm.
when you're not feeling great or when you're feeling a little nervous. It's that little edge when people karaoke, sometimes they'll say, I need a drink of liquid courage. And so they got to take a couple, shots before they can actually feel like they can get on a stage and sing in front of people. And I feel like when you have confidence, you already have that shot. So you're already rearing to go. It doesn't mean you're not nervous. It doesn't mean you don't have butterflies. It just means you're willing. You're willing. You're willing to raise your hand a lot of times to be first, or you're willing to go ahead and walk the walk. What do they say as entrepreneurs? They say sometimes we shoot first and aim later. Confidence, unfortunately, will also do that for you, depending on where you're at. So confidence for sure, I'd say is definitely right up there. So kudos to you for being that mom that instilled confidence in her children. It's definitely a great tool to get through life with. What are some of the other things that you do for your own wellness? Let's go back to you talking about being able to self-regulate and what that has felt like for you. Like that journey, like at what point did you recognize that you needed to self-regulate? I think that's an important distinction because I think there's lots of people walking around in the world right now who their being is that they are a nervous person, or their being is that they're constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. And so how do you get to a point where you're like, I don't know that this is how I'm supposed to walk through life, or that like
Mhm.
what was the thing for you that showed up that made you go, "Oh," like what was the light bulb moment?
Well, I used to be quite hysterical in terms of my emotions, so I would just get out of control, and this was years ago, maybe 30 years ago, and I knew that it wasn't healthy and that it wasn't really getting me what I wanted and that it was scaring people away, and so that was kind of the first time that I realized, "Okay, I need to work on this a little bit." And it really is these kind of I think everybody needs to self-regulate, honestly, because we're in the world with other people and things are gonna trigger us
Right.
and it's going to happen. And I think that it just the amount the level at which you get out of the zone is much less over time, if you're working on yourself consistently. So I think that it started then, and one of the ways that you can always tell is the reactions that you get from other people, right? If you don't have people in your life that want to hang around you, or if your kids are mad at you all the time, or things of that nature, it's a good indication that maybe something that you're doing is repelling them and keeping them away. And then you just have to ask yourself, well, do I want to be alone or do I want to be with other people? And if I want to be with other people, then what needs to change? And most of it is just, it's fear, it's damage, it's the vulnerability, and it's just getting in touch and calming yourself. It took me a really long time to get to the place where I am now. And I wish it would have been sooner. These days we have so many tools with plant medicine and with so many supportive doctors that are aware of behavioral issues or things that we're eating. Maybe people get crazy because they eat gluten, and there's all kinds of things we didn't know about that we know more about now. So I think it's a great time to really be able to get the tools that you need to to be more present in the world and to be able to prosper and feel good and feel love and joy.
Mm, so good. Yeah, and I heard you talk about earlier on the live show about tapping, and that was one of the was
Did
that
I say
was
that?
that did I hear you say tapping? Is tapping
I
one?
didn't say that. I don't believe I'm not a huge tapper, although I think whatever gets you there. Every once in a while, it's funny that you mentioned that because just for some reason I was on YouTube and I saw a tapping video and I was like, oh, like, I haven't tapped in a while. Let me tap with this dude that was on there. So I did a little bit. And I just was curious, I was like, I mean, it's just all you're doing is it's the same thing as a qigong, just waking up the fascia, I think, and just kind of shaking yourself or shaking your body. I think all of it is good to kind of get you out of a state. So I think it's all kind of the product of the same thing. I don't know. Are you a big tapper?
I'm not a big tapper, but I am a fan of somatic therapy in general, and so I feel like
Mhm,
tapping can also it's just a way to move your mind from the thing that you're
mhm.
freaking out about into, okay, now I've got emotion or I've got a I'm switching gears, right? And so it's
Yes,
taking you out of the well, and I think
absolutely. There's so many
tapping does for me.
tools now. I mean, really, it's really there's so much opportunity to really live a pretty happy life. I mean, we're so aware of gratefulness, we're aware of uh tapping or somatic healing, of breath work, meditation. It's all just right there for us. So what a beautiful opportunity for people to just be able to um realize their potential in whatever they wanna do, and then it's just a matter of the self-acceptance and really then the action, kind of what I was talking about, the discipline wealth mindset in the show, just about, what's your plan? Who are you being? How are you gonna execute? And, are you gonna be brave enough to execute if that's the plan and that's who you're being?
That's right. That's right. When we talk about all of these things that we've talked about today, do you require a level of discipline? Do you feel like you are like where are you on the discipline ladder? Are you someone who's always been disciplined? Like were you always a kid like your parents could count on you to clean your room and they could count on you to do your homework? Or did you have to like is there a game that you play where there's incentives, rewards or not? For doing or not doing, or is there, what's the driver? What's the thing that's helped you really get into discipline or understand discipline the way that you do now?
That's such a great question. I would say that I wouldn't have thought of myself early on as someone that was very disciplined. Uh, Part of it was because I was so rebellious and I didn't believe anything would work, and so I was just a basket case. And I think over time, though, I have become a very disciplined person. And I think for the most part, I am. I think as a parent, you become pretty disciplined just because it's so regulated and you have to have a rhythm with kids and they need that structure. And so you just start to learn how to regulate yourself along with them. And I just think also just in getting in my 50s now, I just think that I started to realize, okay, if I don't take care of my body, do I want the atrophy? Do I want the result of what it is to not eat correctly, to not drink water, to not exercise, to not do all the things? And so just given that, I just I just automatically start doing it. And I think that I know that when there are certain things that we know that will yield us the results, we start to get to a point where we start taking that on more and taking discipline on more and taking it seriously because without it, it's very challenging. And the thing, you talked about the ebbs and flows of everything and of life in every aspect. And And it's true that even with the discipline, like you could be eating right for 3 months and not see the results that you want. And so you've got to stick with it past there. Or you could be calling certain people, wanting to make a connection with someone and not get through. So you need to just maybe go to someone else or maybe keep trying. There's things like just because you're doing it in the right way doesn't mean it's necessarily going to climb you to where you want to be right away. So you have to also then have the head about it where you are, where you have the confidence, where you can talk to yourself through it and keep moving until you get the results.
Yes, I love that. Yes, and it's that stickiness, right? It's that stickiness. It goes back to that resilience factor of just being able to stay in the game and not end our story so quickly to where we're ending it where we're not being successful or where things aren't going great or where we are having a freak out moment. It's like,
Mhm.
can we keep going so that we know that,
Absolutely.
okay, this is not where the story needs to end. Like there's more opportunity for this to end in a positive way or in a good way. And maybe I'm just not there yet. And so can I keep going? Because so many times people are literally 2 feet from gold and they're just not going the extra 2 feet to know that like, oh,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
right here. It's right here. It's just you gotta go a little bit further.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, yeah, it's such a big piece of it. And it's kind of that never quit attitude. And I think it takes discipline to have that never quit attitude. It's like take a break, sure, maybe even take a step back, but keep going. Keep going. So for any of you that are listening and you're like, "Oh, I am feeling like I'm in the worst of it and I've been stuck in the worst of it for the long time," keep going. Keep going, keep going. That's definitely where it's panned out for me is just to keep going. And then we get to look back and connect all the dots in life and see where we go. Oh, so glad that I gave it a little bit more. So glad that I picked myself up again and just tried one more time. Because that's usually where the win happened. So Tamar, talk to me about like, are there any upcoming events, retreats? How do we actually get in the weeds with you if we want to learn in front of your genius?
Absolutely. There is a fantastic opportunity for high achieving entrepreneurial women and high net W-2 earners to join me for 2.5 days in Austin for a wealth retreat, August 14th to 16th, where we'll be going through the Women's Wealth Code, breaking all that down, talking about tax strategy, figuring out your real estate personality, and collaborating with very successful women like yourselves.
Amazing. I love that. And at the event, is there like what am I going to leave with? What am I going to know? What am I walking away with?
So you're going to walk away with clarity on yourself and your financial goals, which is extremely important because most women don't know how much they're spending, how much is really being invested in how you might have a 401k, you might not be strategizing it in the best way or a retirement plan. So all of that, you're going to figure out where your enough numbers lie. So if you're chasing dollars and you always feel like, oh God, I need more money, and not realizing, okay, this is where I can be. This is my zone. And we're going to talk about optimizing real estate opportunities. There are so many ways in which we can invest in real estate. And so we're going to be looking at that, figuring out which one's right for you. We're going to be talking about the disciplined wealth mindset. We're going to be talking about some tax strategy. And on top of all that, in addition to collaborating with women, you are going to be hearing from 3 guest speakers who are incredible, who'll be doing high level on how to break down, how to analyze deals. When we talked about, Mary, about how, you're worried about losing money, but you don't understand the numbers. You got to look at, okay, how do you look at a deal? How do you decide? We're going to talk to very, very successful real estate investors and business owners, and also one of my friends is coming who is extremely savvy on sales and relationship and how to make deals and how to see opportunities. And we need those kind of conversations to bring us to the next level.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Amazing. I love that. Is there a specific URL for that, Tamar? Or can we
Yeah,
find that
you
anywhere?
can, that URL is, if you go to wealthbuildingconcierge.com, slash Austin Retreat.
Amazing. Well, Tamar, thank you for being part of the live show. Thank you for grabbing a little bit of this extended version so we get to know you even a little bit better. And for those of you that would like to be in touch with Tamar, like I said, she is a financial genius. Just saying. And so, if you want to learn what some of those tools are, get in touch with her. All of her information is down in the comments and also in the show notes. And definitely take the quiz so that you will know what your investor personality is. And this is something you should know, right? This is how it's a hint, it's a clue. It's part of one of the ways that we get ahead in life, and so many of us want to be able to do that, especially when it comes to finances. And Tamar's really, really good at that and sharing her gift of that with the world. So with that, that is today's live segment. Thank you again, Tamar. Appreciate you so much. And we'll be back next week.
Thank you.
All right.